The member from Bramalea-Go Remote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Premier. Yesterday, the Premier met with the Prime Minister designate. The Premier's statement indicates that she talked about infrastructure. This was an opportunity
Minister of Agriculture.
for the Premier to ask the incoming federal government to follow through on their promises for new infrastructure money so that the Premier doesn't have to sell off Hydro One. This is what Ontario families, municipalities and business have been asking the Premier to do. Did the Premier stand up for Ontarians and ask the Prime Minister designate to provide the money promised so that she...
Stop the clock. Goes both ways. That's not helpful. Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, come to order. Finish, please.
Did the Premier stand up for the people of Ontario and ask the Prime Minister designate for the money promised so that we can build the infrastructure we need and not sell off Hydro One?
Thank you. Premier.
Mr. Speaker, did I stand up for the people of Ontario? And do we have a Prime Minister now who's going to work with Ontario to make the investments that we need? Absolutely, Mr. Speaker. And I'm very proud of that work that I have done, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud of the fact that we now have in Ottawa a government that understands that working with Ontario, working with premiers across the province, having an infrastructure plan across the country, Mr. Speaker, that's in the best interest of this country. I am so proud of that fact, Mr. Speaker. But does it mean that as provinces we abdicate our responsibility? No. We have to continue to do the work that we know is necessary for our province to be able to work now with the country so that we can build up the whole country, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier used to say that the sell-off of Hydro One was a difficult decision. But we've clearly seen that there are other ways to get the money we need for infrastructure. After all, the sell-off
The member from Trinity Spadina.
than 3% of the Premier's infrastructure promises. Yesterday, when she met with the Prime Minister designate, she had a chance to get herself off the hook of this difficult decision and at the same time stand up for the 80% of Ontarians who do not want to see our Hydro One assets sold off. Did the Premier make a case to the Prime Minister designate for the sufficient infrastructure funding that we need so we can build the infrastructure we need and so that she does not sell off Hydro One?
Thank you. Premier.
You know, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very revealing question because what it says about that party is that given half a chance, they would abdicate the responsibility to make difficult choices, that they would not set priorities, Mr. Speaker, that they would not take the tough decisions that are actually what leadership means, Mr. Speaker. You have to take tough decisions. You have to look at the whole scenario and you have to say, okay, what is in the best interest of the people of this province? Well, Mr. Speaker, every municipality across this province has a need for an infrastructure investment, Mr. Speaker. If, as a province, we don't take that seriously and we don't follow through on our plan to invest $130 billion over the next 10 years, Mr. Speaker, then we have no right to ask the federal government to step in and take us off the hook. We have to step up. We have to take responsibility and work with our partners at the federal level.
Be seated, please. Be seated, please. Final supplementary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Just because the Premier has made a bad decision doesn't mean the Premier is stuck with that bad decision. As the facts and circumstances change, so can her decision. So what the Premier is clearly saying is that she was presented with a nearly unprecedented opportunity to stand up for the people of Ontario, and she refused to do so. The Premier has stubbornly dug in her heels and refused to listen to Ontario families, municipalities and businesses who've all made it clear they do not want to see our Hydro One sold off. She never needed to sell off Hydro One in the first place. But now, with the billions of dollars of federal money promised for infrastructure and for transit, the sale is even less necessary. Why did the Premier refuse to stand up for Ontarians, to insist that we have the sufficient infrastructure funding to build the infrastructure we so dearly need and not sell off Hydro One?
Question. Thank you. Premier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think we just see this differently. I think that it is the responsibility of the government in Ontario to take the initiatives that are necessary for the people of Ontario, to make the investments in roads and bridges and transit, Mr. Speaker, in hospitals and schools and water systems that we know are so desperately needed across the province, Mr. Speaker. At the same time, it is critical that we have that federal partner. And no matter who the federal government is, Mr. Speaker, we need that participation of the federal government. Thankfully, now we actually have a federal government that is coming into office that understands that is going to work with the provinces and territories across the country to support and to make those investments that are necessary.
Answer.
But they expect, as they have a right to, that provinces will take their responsibility seriously. That's what we're doing, Mr. Speaker.